Hello and welcome to Talking Points, the weekly show where we talk all things Spurs. And we've had some week, we've had a cup final, we've had sackings, we've had quite a lot of stuff happening over the last week or so with Spurs. But we are going to concentrate on the topic at hand. Who is next for the Hotspur seat? And we're joined here by Mike. We've joined Darius3k. We've got Shank. We've got Will Stewart. And we've got Cody Mack. Welcome, gentlemen. I know we're all ready and waiting to go. And I can see everybody's there willing to have their say. And that's good. That is good. So, obviously, I know that we've had a lot of disappointment with regards to the cup final. And we don't really want to touch on that because that's now gone. We've done that to death. I'm sure all of us have done that to death on various reaction shows, etc., etc. But it did kind of almost slip under the radar over the last week or so with the ESL talk, but we actually are managerless in terms of a full-time manager. We have got an interim in Ryan Mason, but we now have our Spurs looking for somebody else to take over the hot seat. And I have got a few candidates, and I'm sure you lot are going to like this. So let's put this graphic up firstly. Hotspur Hot Seat candidates. Howe, Parker, Potter, Rodgers, Santos, Sarri, Southgate, Ten Hag. Whew, this is going to be a good one. Let's do a round of tables. Let's start with, I guess, Eddie Howe. Let's start with Eddie Howe. As I said, gentlemen, there's a lot of names going around. There's a whole lot of talk going around on social media, Twitter, everything. Eddie Howe's out of work currently. I'll come to you, Cody. Is this a name? Is this a manager that you want to see in the hot seat at Spurs?
Well, I think we should be prefacing our discussion on the managerial situation by saying first and foremost that the manager is not just the only thing that needs to change. When you look at any of these candidates, if we're going to be looking at the same type of investment and the same type of scouting and development that we've seen over the last decade, then really you might as well just put me in charge because it's not really going to matter who you put in there. But I mean, Eddie Howe, I know a lot of people like him, did a good job with Bournemouth bringing them up. I don't know. It really depends because like, is he going to be the type of manager that's going to sit down across the table from Daniel Levy and say, no? Is he going to be the kind of guy that's going to push us forward? There's so many questions to be answered when it comes to the managerial discussion. Personally, I think that I would like to see us bring in someone who I can see here for the long term, for 5 years, because I think that the problems that go deep into our club are not going to be solved with one transfer window, with two transfer windows, right? I don't see us being successful with the current nucleus that we have. And I don't want to pin our problems on players like Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. But the reality is we've given it a pretty decent run with these guys. And if we hold on to them for much longer, they're going to be declining in value. And we've done this so many times with so many players. We just don't move players on soon enough. So, yeah, it's hard. Is Eddie Howe the kind of guy who can be a 5-year project manager? Maybe. Yeah. So he's definitely not at the bottom of the list for me. There's a couple guys on there who, ugh.
What I just ask a question though, is Eddie Howe going to come in and deal with, because obviously we've gone from Poch to Jose, both of whom had issues with the players that are currently in this setup. I think there's a whole load of players that need to be out of the squad, out of the team, out of the club before any manager has a real opportunity to kind of mold things in the way he was or in the way that they want. And I'm just not sure if Eddie Howe is that manager. I know he did things at Bournemouth, but that's Bournemouth. I talk about Tottenham Hotspur like we're some mighty all and now, but there's a lot of pressure which comes with this job. Is he going to be able to deal with that pressure?
Yeah, you know what? On one hand, it's hard to picture considering that he hasn't had a position like this. But at the same time, in the past, if we had have adopted that type of approach when looking at managerial candidates, we never would have had Maurizio Pochettino. You know, we've gone from, Poch, who was brought in as a bit of a project manager, someone who we were going to hand the reins, maybe outperformed even the expectations that were placed upon him, to bringing in this serial winner who was meant to kind of extinguish the trophyless fire that we are. And it hasn't really worked out. But, you see a lot of people who are are denigrating some of the managerial candidates that we've been linked to. And I think that's a little bit of a hangover from Jose Mourinho. Everyone thinks that we should be going from one pedigree manager to another. But in my opinion, a lot of these pedigree managers that we've been linked to are best suited coming in to manage a finished article and bring us from a high level to a level that is even higher. So, I don't see Eddie Howe having a problem dealing with the size of the job. You know, he definitely wouldn't have a problem cashing his paycheck, which is what a lot of these guys are going to be looking for at the end of the day, because let's face it, we're a bit of a dumpster fire as a club right now. It's not exactly an attractive position. And you're seeing that with some of the candidates running with their tails between the legs to other clubs like Nagelsmann has.
Yeah. Darius, you see Eddie Howe as a good fit for Spurs?
Again, I completely agree with a lot of what Cody said. I think that it's not that he's bad. I just think there's much better out there, and it's the fact that you need somebody who's going to have to be, like Cody said, authoritative. They're going to have to kind of be able to put their character above a lot of others and then kind of assert their dominance. And I just think that Eddie Howe, while he is a confident guy and I think he is a good manager, he has good ideas, I just don't think that he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to rip up trees. And I really do believe that we need somebody who's going to rip up trees slightly. So I just don't know. I think that we've created this mess ourselves. There's no manager, in my opinion, who's going to want to come to this club for any other reason than maybe a paycheck or to try and win a trophy for the first time. And that's now leaving you down to a few maybe managers who might not be coming for the right reasons. They might not be coming to Tottenham because they want to kind of bring back, or not even bring back, try and create a glory that we want to see. So it's difficult. You need somebody who kind of wants the job as opposed to somebody who might fit the job better. That's what I believe. If somebody maybe isn't as good a manager, maybe, for example, like Eddie Howe, maybe he might be the right option as opposed to, like you said, somebody like a Allegri. I don't know who else who really can, you know what I mean? Who really can push forward and do that. So I don't know. I think Eddie Howe is probably not the best option. There's many others. I think that there's, like we said, we'll go on the list and there'll be many more we can discuss. But yeah, Eddie Howe is not the best of the bunch, I would say.
So we're getting a little bit of a mixed opinion about Eddie Howe. Will, what's your thoughts on Eddie?
I mean, I'm not too excited about it. I mean, to be honest with you, it's just Bournemouth, right? I like to see people come up, from a championship side and start to run into mid-table side, and then eventually come into Tottenham, kind of like how Pochettino did. For me, that I think that's important. I think that, but it just, with our current board and the current situation at the club and all the, does Levy gonna have? Is he gonna want a yes man, someone who he can push around? Because it seems to me, and me and Cody were talking about this just 15 minutes ago, that it seems like since the stadium has been completed, Daniel Levy has really gotten his hands too far deep, and he's been micromanaging a lot of the issues at the club that he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be involved in the day-to-day works of the club. And it seems like right now he's got his fingers in everything. And it doesn't matter what manager comes in. When you're a CEO of a company and you're micromanaging it, you're not letting people do the job that you hired them to do, it's going to fail every time. So,
Cenk, do you think Eddie Howe coming in would need a massive amount of money? Or do you think he's a sort of, I guess, a mini Poch that can work with what he's got within a budget and do something at the club that's going to propel us forward?
I don't think he's the right man for the job. I think when you look at it, someone's got to come in with a little bit of experience. Yes, he's been at Bournemouth. Credit to what he's done, because he's probably one of the best managers in terms of bringing a team from the lower team all the way up to the Prem. There's only a very few managers who have done that, but not for Spurs. You've got to get someone in who's going to steady the ship, because right now it's all over the place. We've got so many issues from a variety of different cylinders, from the players to the board to the culture of the club. It's all a bit of a mess. And if you think about it as well, if Harry Kane and Son and all these big profile players like Lloris see Eddie Howe coming through the door, are they really going to be satisfied with his philosophy, with his style? If you've got to ask that question as well, it's the players that have got to buy into him. Are they going to buy into him? I'm not entirely sure. But
I agree with you. I agree with you. Mike, I don't know what your thoughts are. Do you think that our superstars in the likes of Son, Kane, Ndombele, Højbjerg, would they buy into someone like Eddie Howe coming after, seeing the likes of Poch and seeing the likes of Mourinho, and then we go to, no disrespect, but we then go to Eddie Howe?
Well, if you look at Pochettino, he was effectively just like Eddie Howe. essentially he was a nobody, and he did wonders with Southampton. The case was Eddie Howe, and I'm talking here from I actually live in Bournemouth, and so I do follow Bournemouth quite a bit. Eddie Howe brought Bournemouth up from the brink of, well, they almost fell out of the Football League, and from, I think it was like 2008, I think they were almost they almost fell out of the Football League. It's due to administration issues, and Eddie Howe's brought them up literally on a shoestring budget. Clever acquisitions from loan deals, the youth players, and he got him into the Premier League literally without any money at all to spend on players.
Oh, it sounds like Levy's wet dream.
Well, exactly.
He won't have that control.
But I think with Bournemouth, if I don't know if anyone's seen them play, they under Eddie Howe they played some lovely football. They just didn't have the players to probably sort of fulfill the tactics and the brand of style from Eddie's style of play, and that's
what
why
we want to see though. Do we want to see nice football again without anything at the end of it, or are we looking at six? I don't know what we want from our club at the moment.
I don't think the fans know. Us fans, we don't know what we want. Do we want to play? Do we want the pretty football? If we want the pretty football, then half those managers that are in that category for the potential job, they're probably not fit for purpose. If we want a manager that is, I don't know, like Pochettino or a tactician like Mourinho, then yeah, there's a few names in that category that could fit the bill. But I honestly, if it was Eddie Howe, I think he needs a stepping stone. He needs another club before he goes on to a big club. I think he's a terrific manager. I could see
Brighton,
him being
Southampton, something like that.
He's a future England manager if he gets things right. If things goes like according to plan, should we say? I honestly highly rate him. Same with Graham Potter. Those two I do highly rate as managers.
We'll
I think the time's come too early for them for the Tottenham hot seat. So Eddie Howe at this moment in time, I don't think he'd be ready for the seat. He needs another club as a stepping stone to go on.
What are we giving him out of 10 in terms of a prospect? If he was to come and let's say he got the job tomorrow, what are we rating him out of 10 to be able to bring to Spurs? Because I'm on the fence with him. If he was to come in, I'll be like, oh, you know what?
Yeah,
I just don't know if at this moment in time our club is that toxic that he might drown. I just don't know if he can deal with the politics.
I don't think anybody can. Honestly, I don't think anyone can.
Does he want it? Would he want it?
I don't honestly. I think that honestly, I've kind of, after that final, my whole opinion's changed. I honestly think that if Jose Mourinho can't even be given a chance to win a trophy in the final, there's no one. For me, it's like it's a poison chalice. It's an inevitable loss at the end of the day now for any manager that comes in. It doesn't seem positive for any manager that comes in. So for me, as a fan, I can't really. We just have to go with somebody like Poch and kind of hope that we get lucky, because Poch wasn't meant to do what he was going to do. I really don't imagine that Daniel Levy signed Poch to get into a Champions League final that impressively. I just can't imagine that was the plan. So for me, he's got the consistent top four. For me now, I just want to see my team play well. I can't even watch my team play well at this point. I just want to watch my team play well. And if the manager is good enough, you can see maybe progression, because this is going to be a painful rebuild regardless of who it is, regardless of the style of football we play.
How do you determine whether a manager's good enough without giving them the chance? So to say, you can argue that with Eddie Howe, Graham Potter. And how do they get a chance? How do we know if they're any good if no club gives them a chance?
I think you got to bring a club up to the top, into the top 7, top 8.
But I think with us as well, I think with Spurs, sorry, Mike, I think with Spurs, maybe we pull the trigger a bit too quickly, because what is it, 14 managers in 20 years that
ridiculous
Daniel Levy's has brought into the club. 14 managers in 20 years. Let that sink in. You know, that's a lot of managers to come through the club in a 20-year period. So are we moving managers on too quickly? Are we not giving them enough opportunity? Are we not supporting these managers? Someone like Eddie Howe, to me, looks like he could work well with players. He looks like he works well with younger players. He seems to be that sort of manager that's got a good arm around the shoulder. But that after a while goes, and then it's kind of like, well, we need results now. We need results. And that's, I guess, why he slipped out of Bournemouth, ultimately, why he lost his job. So it's a tough one. I think we should move on to the next candidate, and let's put this back up again. who has managerial experience at the present time, and a former Spurs coach, Scotty Parker. Who wants to take Scotty Parker first and discuss him?
I'll take Scotty Parker.
Scotty Parker. You notice how I said Scotty Parker, didn't you? You like that?
You know what? People dismiss Scotty Parker just because he hasn't really done anything at the Premier League level. But for me, if you bring in Scott Parker, first of all, yes, he is a former player, but I wouldn't say that Scotty Parker is anywhere close to a legend. So it's not like we're bringing in like a Frank Lampard where we're going to expect immediate success. If we bring in a manager like Scotty Parker, for me, that is our way of, as a club, acknowledging that, okay, we have problems. And that's the thing. We've just been having this managerial carousel going around all the time without taking a long look at ourselves in the mirror and saying, okay, it's time for us to consider like a massive rebuild. If we brought Scott Parker in, that would tell me, in some respects, that we would be acknowledging the greater problems, that we would be, okay, now we need to take our expectations and lower them a bit and be reasonable about it, right? If we brought in Scott Parker and we cleared out some deadwood and we brought in some of the younger players, we wouldn't be sitting here saying, why aren't we in top 4? Why aren't we winning the Premier League? And the reality is that, to me, is the depth of our problems, is that we need to rebuild to the point where we don't have those expectations. So if you bring in
now, sorry, Cody, what we say now, we've built this £1 billion stadium. We've got these aspirations, and Darius has said Poch has spoiled us and getting us these top 4 finishes and Champions League finals. Are we now saying that we have to now really lower our expectations to what, finish in what, top 10, top 8? What are we looking at?
If we want to build a club that's capable of winning the bigger honors in English football and indeed European football, yes, that is the problem we face. Just look at the product that we have on the pitch right now. Can you pick out more than 5 players who you can see being a part of a Premier League winning side at this point? A lot of these players just need to be moved on. And there's no doing that under this current model with ENIC, which is, when we do spend money, we spend it poorly. There's no way to do that without seeing us slip down the table a little bit. Arsenal they have acknowledged the fact that they needed to do that rebuild. They got rid of the Mesut Ozils of the world. They paid off the players that they needed to get rid of. We haven't looked that problem in the face yet. I don't think Scotty Parker is the best manager in world football, but when you just look at the way that Fulham played against us this year, those guys, despite being hired in a relegation battle, are playing for the badge. And on top of that, Fulham were sitting on 7 points after 10 games this season. They were utterly atrocious on the defensive end. Scott Parker has shown that he can implement change, that he can bring a different mentality within the season. We didn't see that with Jose. We just saw the same mistakes happening over and over and over. So I think Scott Parker has a bright future. You bring him in, and you keep Ryan Mason as an assistant, and now you have like a great triumvirate of Mason, Parker, and Ledley King. You've got everyone Spurs through and through, and that can guide us through this obvious transitory period that we face.
I'm not convinced, though. I'm not convinced.
I'm not,
because if you look at the Fulham side, I've watched a lot of people, a lot of pundits from other channels and stuff like that, talking about that there are several players in Fulham squad that they'd like to see at Spurs next season, and if he has quality players, why was he not able to drag them out of the bottom 3, by their bootstraps? You said 7 points after 10 games. Well, they've only got 27 now. So that's 20 in the last 20 games, right? So I
think
it's 1 point a match. I mean, that's better than the 7, but it's still not, especially with the way Newcastle and the form Newcastle was in. He had plenty of opportunity to claw his way out further from that hole, and he just didn't do it. And with players that there have been a lot of pundits that have said, I'd like to have him at Tottenham next season. So
yeah, they've got some nice players, but Fulham are not a good team. They're not. Nobody here is defending Fulham as a good team. But even within those that range of results that they've had, look at some of the scalps they've taken this season, right? They beat Liverpool, right? They took 4 points off Liverpool. So yeah. Good, I understand, but I
mean, Brighton, they're right down there with them, right? So what I'm saying is that I think that goes down to more how bad we are.
I think he's got a future in management. I definitely do think he's got a good future in management. But Colin's made a good point here. That's why I've left this comment up here. It's the scouting network that's the problem. So again, do we need to look at more than just the manager? more than just the players on the pitch? Is the scouting network something that we need to address as well? Cenk, what's your thoughts on that? If you brought in Scotty Parker, would he need to do a complete overhaul of the scouting network as well?
If a club statement come out tomorrow and it said Scott Parker, that would be very underwhelming for me. This is a make or break appointment for Tottenham Hotspur. This is a massive part in what's going to determine a long time for our football club. And we need someone who's going to come in and is going to be able to do that rebuild, has done it before. I'm not entirely sure, again, that Scott Parker's the man. It's similar to Eddie Howe for me. It's quite a similar sort of appointment if it was going to happen. I just don't really see the potential in it. What's Scott Parker's ceiling? Is he a top 4 manager? Is he a top 6? Or is he just a mid-table or relegation manager? I don't know. I need to see a manager who's done it before, like a Nagelsmann, who done it at Hoffenheim and done it at Leipzig. Yes, they've got good footballing structure, but I don't know. This is the problem as well, because our board are incompetent and we haven't got a good structure, and there's recruitment issues, and it's just a massive mess. And it's a big ask from any manager to come in. Do you know what I mean? It's a big ask for anyone. So this is why I'm so confused. It's conflicting. Do we bring in someone who's got a rich history of winning, or someone who's, as Darius said, wants the first trophy and is kind of like the cliche rebuild manager? We don't know.
You need a solid manager. Scotty Parker isn't a solid manager. He's less experienced than Eddie Howe. So how can we expect Scotty Parker with two seasons of football under his belt, or is it? I can't even remember. I'm assuming let's go 2 seasons. Not even that, probably. But you can't. Again, it's career suicide for someone of his experience to be expected to come in and do a solid job at Spurs. I just don't think he's got that experience. He probably hasn't even got the know-how as to where would he begin. I don't think he'd even know where to begin. So you need someone that's got the experience, the know-how, someone that's been there, done it, brought a T-shirt.
Someone like Jose Mourinho.
Someone exactly like Jose Mourinho.
I was going to say that.
It's exactly. I personally would have, for that sole reason, I probably would have kept him on, just to be like, get rid of the dead wood, sort some of the infrastructure from the footballing side out for us, so it gives the next manager a fighting chance to take on the job as such.
In the picture that you have, I think he would be a better shout than the two on either side of him, but I just think he also needs one more step before he moves into a top 6 side.
100%.
Darius, is Scotty Parker an exciting managerial appointment? Would he play the youngsters? To me, he seems like the sort of, and I hate to always compare it to Arsenal, but he seems like bringing in Arteta. That's the sort of vibe that I kind of get from bringing someone like Scotty Parker. A lot of potential.
I'd say Freddie Ljungberg.
I would as well, probably.
Dresses really nice. You can see that he's passionate. He's all those things that ticks all the boxes. But when it comes to real pressure, I don't know if he's going to be able to cope at Spurs. And that's the problem. It's that pressure element. So do you think Scotty could deal with it? I know he's been there before, but he's not been in the hot seat.
I think the issue is, and I don't think Scott Parker's a bad manager at all. I think he plays an attractive style of football. I think what Tottenham need is not what Tottenham need, I don't think. I think what Tottenham need is a manager with a very, very strict and understandable identity that you can really recognize and know, like, that's what he wants to play. That's the style he's going to deploy. And you need a manager that's not going to divert from that either. So if things don't go well, he's still going to try and you know what I mean? Have an idea, have a plan that he's going to make the right substitutions. He's going to do something that's going to change the game. When I see Jose Mourinho make certain substitutions, and this is why I get a bit confused when people were still lauding him for the pragmatism and his innovation, because he wasn't making subs that were innovative. He was making subs that were kind of in panic. And that's not what I kind of want to see from my manager. So Scott Parker, again, I'm just going to echo what you all say. He's just not at the level that I think that we want him to be and that he should be at to manage the team and the chaos that is ensuing in our club as well. So it's the level-headed experience that I think that we're after, but also the modernity and the progression of the football. We need to see, I think, well, personally, I want to see better football being played, regardless of who it is. Even if it's not somebody who's going to win something straight away, I want to see my team play better football. I watch football to enjoy watching football, and I'm 20 years old, so I've only seen Tottenham win 1 trophy. So for me, I don't really expect trophies. That's just me personally. Obviously, I don't expect trophies. So if it comes, I'm happy. But if it doesn't, the last thing I want is to hate watching football and then also never see my team win a trophy. So Scott Parker, that's that's going off. But Scott Parker, yeah, I just don't think he's not ready yet. I don't think.
So a mixed bag with Scott Parker. Let's move on to our next candidate. This is one I actually quite like. Graham Potter. Guys, talk to me about Graham Potter. Cenk, what do you want to say about Graham Potter?
XG master, isn't he? That's his tag.
Honestly,
do you know what? When I watch Brighton, I think fantastic football, passing. As we know, the XG is crazy when you look at it. But again, it's that big step. Can he make that step to Tottenham? I think he's probably more likely out of the ones we've mentioned in terms of Parker, etc., and Howe. But I like his identity of football. I really do. And I feel like if you actually look at Brighton play, they do everything right other than the finishing. And when you've got Harry Kane in the box, you're going to be finishing those chances. So out of the ones you've mentioned, Potter is one that stands out to me. And I think, okay, I would give a little bit of a chance to him. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't know what you guys think, because I genuinely
I'm impressed by
like Brighton play. But again, it's that step to Tottenham.
He's a great tactician.
I don't know if I could handle the memes though, right? When your last name's Potter and you look like Ron Weasley, I don't know if I could handle. I don't know if I could handle another year of memes. You know,
we're gonna get memed anyway. We're gonna get memed anyway.
Give me something about Graham Potter that you would actually take away as a like and a positive for him.
The way that he sets up his teams and the way that he plays an attacking style of football is appealing. I guess you could say his style vaguely reminds me of a Poch-esque type system of pressing and stuff like that. To be honest with you, I'm not on that. Like, I just want, champagne football or whatever. I just want to win. I want to win. So I don't care if we win 1-0 or if we win 5-0. I just want to win. So for me, the style isn't near as important as getting the job done. And right now, he's only 7 points out of relegation, and he hasn't gotten the job done for Brighton this year. This is one of their worst positions in the table in a while.
I would say that, and I agree to an extent with a lot of what you said in that. But again, we have to the club has to identify what we want. And it's very split. I was very much, I want trophies. I was happy to have Jose Mourinho in because I thought serial winner, he's going to bring some form of success to Spurs in terms of trophies. That hasn't worked out for whatever reason. That hasn't worked out. We had Poch, who was nearly there, almost there, kind of, but didn't take some of the domestic trophies seriously enough for me. But he was all about, right, I'm looking at the next level up. And we haven't even got that first level. So we had no foundation. So what we were thinking about, that we should be winning leagues and winning Champions League, we had no business thinking that. But Poch, again, kind of glossed that over for us and made us think, oh, yeah, we should be up there. I don't believe we are a top 4 team at this moment in time. We are not anywhere close to that. But our aspirations are now, we should be bringing in the likes of, Nagelsmann and these kind of men. We might need to go back to real basics, as they say in football, real basics. So,
look,
Mike,
there's one in there. I think there's a step place in here, and that people don't like it because it's almost like mini Mourinho, who, and I'm sure we'll get onto him, but there's a person in that list who has.
I'm interested to see.
We'll see. We're gonna get there. Mike, what's your thoughts on Mr. Potter, as I like to call him?
I like Potter. I think he's a great tactician. If you look at how he set Brighton up against us when they beat us, he got it spot on, kept clean sheet, and we looked distinctly average and out, and we just didn't look like we had any idea as to how to break Brighton down. And if you look at Brighton's results, they're only where they are because they haven't got a goal scorer. They haven't got someone who can knock in 20 goals a season, which you need really if you're going to sort of have a team that's going to be sort of mid-table upwards. So I think that's anything that Brighton lack is just goals. If you look at I think they've got 13 draws, and the draws that they've had, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the vast majority of them looked like they were 0-0s when I last looked. And they were unlucky against Chelsea when they drew. Was it 0-0 the other week? 0-0. They did, but they had chances to win that game. But again, I just put it down to a lack of goal scorer. So I do like Potter. I think I think he is a stronger candidate than the other two that we've just mentioned. But again, it boils down to that: does he need another club, like a bigger club than what he's at Brighton, before he comes on to somewhere like Spurs? But I don't know. I do like him. He's one of my. If I had to have three, he'd be one of the names on my list.
I don't necessarily think that he needs another club step change. I think he just really needs. If he would have pulled, say if Brighton was sitting at 8th right now, right? If Brighton was where Villa was, then I would say, yeah, right. Let's bring him in. They're not, right? They're 7 points out of relegation. Like, they're below Newcastle. So, in the end of the day, we've already got a mentality of not getting it over the line. So, do we want to bring in another manager who can't seem to get it over the line? I mean, that's my point with him.
I think if you look at his goal difference as well, just before we move on to the next one, his goal difference is better than I think it was Wolves, who was sat 10th, and I think their goal difference was the same as Arsenal's, who was sat 8th or 9th, wherever they are. But again, like you say, if he was further up the table, then we'd probably be all shouting, "Yeah, he's a good shout." But he is where he is, and that's probably what puts a bit of doubt in our minds.
Let me tell you the problem with Graham Potter. Okay, if we bring in a manager like Graham Potter, to me, the message that we were getting from the board is that we are going to bring in a manager who we think can do better with the existing squad, right? For me, it's like this porridge is too hot or whatever, like you have your three options. I think we need to bring in a manager that either we're going to immediately invest in, or we're going to give a 5-year project and initiate that rebuild that Poch has been talking about. Graham Potter, for me, is just a manager that's going to be the form of kicking the can down the road, where 2 years from now we're going to have Eric Dyer still playing center back, and we're going to be having the same conversation all over again, because he hasn't been properly backed and we haven't gotten rid of the deadwood like we were supposed to. Graham Potter is like a lateral move. I can't really see him sitting across from Daniel Levy and being anything more than like a yes man, But
Brighton has a lot better defense than we do. I would take Brighton's back four in a heartbeat.
I would take them.
I would pull Reguilon out of our squad, and I would take their whole back line over our back line.
So if we bring him in and we're going to try and give it a go with relatively little change, we're probably not even capable of playing the pretty ball that everybody seems to love that has Brighton sitting 17th. But yeah, that would be my problem with Potter.
Do you guys think, just a question as well, do you think there is a link between, playing good football and not being able to win? Because I think you can win trophies and play a good brand of football. If you look at City, obviously on the weekend was a great example. They've done it. Liverpool, recently very successful.
But Cenk, look how much money they've invested. Look how much money those teams have invested. Liverpool sold Coutinho and invested, 150 million. They brought in the best centre-back and probably the best goalkeeper in the world at that time to make them better than what they were. We sell Gareth Bale and bring in a whole load of players that have not even survived at the club, apart from Eric Lamela in those times. So we don't spend the money wisely enough to be able to suggest that we can do those same things. The other thing is those teams like Liverpool, they had success in them. I know that their history of the club suggests that they're successful. So it needed a little bit more of a push to get over the line. Our mentality in our club is not at that level. I just don't believe we are at that level to be able to bring in them players and make everything work. We've got a good squad. If you look at the players on paper, it's a really good squad. I know there's lots of players who are not good enough, but sorry, there's a good nucleus of players there.
Yeah, I just think that nucleus of players, though, mate, some of them need to be moved. There's 10 players that I can name off the top of my head that just need to go. Not just because I don't think they're necessarily good enough to play for us. I just think they've just reached that stage of their career where they need a new challenge, need to be moved on for the sake of their own careers, as well as obviously the sake of us fans and our mental well-being and stuff.
And I agree. Sorry, I just agree with you, Mike. And I also agree with that point. And when we're talking about a manager who's going to obviously be a project manager for maybe 3 to 5 years, in 3 to 5 years, I don't really want to be seeing a 32-year-old and 31-year-old Harry Kane and Son if they're not going to be still performing at their peak. If you can get the most amount of money you can get for them now, what would you rather? Would you rather 3 more years of those two, or would you rather cash in and this painful rebuild that is inevitable have a little bit more money in the bank to, do you know what I mean, to sort of deal in the transfer market.
Thing is, who's going to pay 150 million for Kane when he's got glass ankles?
But this is the point I wanted to make. I would actually agree with you, Darius, in terms of getting the money now, snatching it and rebuilding, but we haven't got the ball to do it, and they're not capable enough of getting the recruitment in the right areas and spending it wisely. As Sam alluded to, Liverpool sold Coutinho, invest that money wisely, and look at them 2-3 years later winning the Champions League, winning the Prem. We can't do that, unfortunately, until we change the behaviour, until we bring in whatever you want to call it, head of recruitment, director of football. It's just not possible.
On the back of that, though,
I'm going to have to stop us there. I want us to move on. We have got so many more managers to go through. It's really good, but we have got a few more. So this one's going to be interesting.
We glossed over there, really and truly. Sorry to interrupt.
This is the one that's going to be interesting. Brendan Rodgers, I know it's probably a little bit of a moot point now because I think he's kind of signed his allegiance to Leicester. Yeah. So it's maybe one that we could have a little bit of a chat about if potentially he was going to come to Spurs. I think he would have been a good fit. There's still a couple of question marks in terms of really getting across the line. I know he did it at Celtic, but when he was at Liverpool, and I know that was a few years ago, he kind of stumbled along the way. Even last season at Leicester, they were top four, and then obviously fell out of the top four. It looks like they're going to be in the top four this season. However, is Brendan Rodgers, or would Brendan Rodgers be that manager to take us to the next level? Darius, what's your thoughts?
I think Brendan Rodgers would have done a fine job. I just think that I didn't have any idea, or I didn't have any sort of thought that he was going to join, because I think what's the point in him even moving from Leicester? The situation he's in now is in a much better place than he would be at Tottenham, I think, and he would bring a football that we would desire. He would also, I believe, bring a sort of tactical idea where he would be able to game by game sort of deploy different tactics that would benefit Spurs and that would put us in an advantage against teams. But I kind of didn't really think much on Brendan Rodgers because I just thought there was no chance of him even coming. And also, I think the money that it would have demanded, I think we were talking similar wages to Mourinho. In my opinion, you could probably get a manager on his level for maybe even half or 2/3 of the wage. So,
and the thing is, you run the risk with Rodgers as well, don't you? Because like you've just mentioned, he doesn't really get any team over the line. Celtic's a different kettle of fish because when he was manager of them, I think I could have managed Celtic and probably won the Scottish Premier League. But Rodgers, he's a good manager, but would he get us over the line? Again, there's question marks to it.
I think he's a perfect manager for Daniel Levy.
You think?
Keep us in the top four, but never win anything.
That's a very good point, because he does seem to be that sort of man. He seems to, and I've watched him quite a lot recently with the guy. He obviously can develop young players. He can coach well. That's how he's got to the point where his coaching is up there with some of the best. He's learned from the best. He seemingly can get the best out of younger players, which I think we need to get the best out of some of our younger players. And he's a bit more of a yes man. He doesn't seem to be the sort of manager that throws his toys out the pram. He might not get 150 million to spend every season. He just seems to get on with it. And I think you're right, Will. That's an ideal Daniel Levy manager. Really,
I just wanted to add as well, if you look at Leicester's recruitment, it's absolutely unbelievable. And if he can't get top four with that recruitment and that setup, with it being on the rise as well with the infrastructure, and he comes to Spurs and he doesn't even get the right recruitment, how's he going to do it here?
Do you think, Cenk, that Leicester have a better squad than us currently?
Yeah.
I agree. I was going to say, I slightly agree. I mean, I think the individuals maybe not as good, but
I believe as a squad, no.
We have 4 players that are better than some of their players. There's 4 players that I would keep from our squad.
You see what it is?
From the entirety of that squad?
I'm not sure, I'm not sure if they've got a better squad or they're just performing better because the manager's getting them to perform. There are clear players in our squad that are not good enough. We all know that. But there are some real talent.
Who would you not take from Leicester?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm running the team in my head right now. Even the 11, it's like Kasper Schmeichel, Ricardo Pereira, Fofana, Ndidi, Tielemans. Who else have we got? Harvey Barnes. Ian Acho's on fire at the moment.
But form, isn't it? You're talking about form.
Yeah, you're talking about good players.
Good players as well.
You throw
form over about 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Let's look at our players. Harry Kane, Son. You could name those 2 as 2.
And Ndombele, Højbjerg, and that's it.
Ndombele, definitely there. I would say, and I'm going to put him on the list. I know his form's been really poor at the moment. Region, he's another one I would definitely keep in ours as a nucleus. Then you've got the likes of Oliver Skip coming through. Obviously, he's on loan at the moment. We have got a nucleus. Ryan Session as well. I would say that we are probably on a par with Leicester. Leicester are doing better with their parts than we are. That's what I think it is. They're doing better with their parts. They seem to be playing together. They're very cohesive. We're not cohesive enough. If we could play together, and it was proved in the early part of the season for us when we were getting these results that we can play the football that can win games. We're just not doing that at the moment with the players.
I think if you keep our five best players, like you said, Kane, Son, Højbjerg, Ndombele, Reguilon, those five. And you take all of Leicester's starting 11, and you add in a couple, squad players here and there, mix and match from who you think is better or whatever. I think you've got a team that can challenge with the likes of City and Liverpool for the league.
Yeah.
Problem is they get more of their players in than we do, and that's why I say they have a better squad.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Right, let's move on because Brendan Rodgers isn't coming to Spurs. I think he's signed up for Leicester. Let's move on to the next one. I never get his name right because I just can't say it.
Espirito Santo.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much. Can I start with this one? I'm just going to keep it simple. I don't want him.
I've got not much.
I just don't want him. I just don't. I think he can do things with Wolves, and I think he's a good manager. A good manager. He's not a great manager. I just think that the way he comes across, he looks like, and I've mentioned this before, he's a tracksuit manager. He's comfortable in his tracksuit on the training pitch, putting the cones down, but he looks uncomfortable sitting and standing on the sidelines. To me, we need the full package of a manager. No, we had the Jose in terms of his, it's all about me ego, but we had Poch who, was able to put himself in front of the camera and kind of be the spokesperson for Spurs. Santo doesn't give me that sort of vibe.
I disagree. Okay. I think he's, if Pochettino and Mourinho had a baby, there you go.
It's a very, very good point.
I'm not kidding, right? You talk about, out of all the managers except for maybe Rodgers that we've talked about so far, you brought Wolves out of the championship immediately into European position, and then kept them in the top half of the table for the most part. I think they'll finish in the top 10 eventually, even though they're sitting in 12th right now. Which is something that Sheffield United couldn't do. So I think the way that they play, the way that they set up, I think that he's kind of a no-nonsense type of manager. I think he'd be perfect to come in and really. I don't think he'll be a yes man for Daniel Levy. I don't think that he's going to be buddy with the players and start his mates in cup finals. Shots fired. I think that he could be, for a rebuild manager. If you're looking for a rebuild, I think he could do a job. I think he's pragmatic enough to defend well, and before his star striker was taken out of the whole season with a head injury, they were looking like they were going to finish in the top 6, 7 to 8 of the season again this season. So,
you sold him. You've made a good case for him. Yeah. I'm just not feeling. Welcome back. Let's Cody. I'll come to you. What's Nuno? Your thoughts on Nuno?
Well, I think the best thing Nuno has going for him is, after Jose, I really don't want a manager that can speak English personally. The fact that I wouldn't have to listen to him say anything in a press conference would be a bonus. But listen, one thing about Nuno,
English is probably better than Jose's, actually.
His English is good. His English is good.
Basically, Wolves are aren't they completely Portuguese? I'm not really seeing I haven't really seen anything from him to make me think that he's the answer at manager. They do show flashes, but it's just a different version of what Jose Mourinho brings. They'll pull off a 0-0 draw with Chelsea, and everybody will be saying, "Oh, it's a Nuno masterclass." But I don't see him as the ultimate tactician.
Last season when he had his striker, he battered bottom half tape.
But hasn't he been a little bit exposed this year? Right?
4 or 5.
I mean, you take your best player out of any side, it's going to affect them. We're the same way with Harry Kane. But hasn't he been a little bit exposed even despite that? You know, hasn't I really haven't been impressed with Wolves.
They
this
beat
season.
us. They beat us last.
Well, that's
season.
not saying much.
But I'm just saying you have to look at the way. Yes, he does play. He can play a Mourinho style base, but sometimes when he plays this is what he plays. He parks the bus when he has to, right? But when he plays the bottom half tables, like if you look at last season, this season it's like you're talking week 5 or 6 when they were up there, and then all of a sudden there's their main goal scoring threat leaves. And it completely derails the season, and he still kept them up. But last season, he was battering bottom table sides. I mean, 4 or 5-0. He wasn't parking the bus. It was no 0-0s against Brighton. It was 3-0s and 4-0s and stuff like that. Yeah,
Let me ask you this:
1-0.
Let me ask you this. Okay, does Nuno inspire you to think that he would get backed by Levy and Enoch?
I don't think he has to though, because you're talking players like Jota, right? Who's class now, who came out, Wolves lost them out of that side. You had, Jimenez, who is lost out of that side. I mean, Neto is really the only goal scorer that they have.
No, I'm just saying.
Neto is the same quality.
If Nuno comes in here and he doesn't get backed, right? Do you trust him for a rebuild here? Is he a rebuild manager?
Absolutely. I think he is. I think he's. Like I said, if Pochettino and Mourinho had a baby.
Mike, I'm going to come to Mike because I think Mike's got a similar sort of vibe to me, and I can see him there. His eyes are going up and down as mine did. But you sold him well. I give you that. Yeah. You sold him well.
And the memes, come on now, Boondocks thing.
Mike, tell me, talk to me.
Will has sold him well. I give Will that. If I ever needed to sell a car, I'd be phoning up Will to help me shift it on. Nuno, he just doesn't do anything for me. I don't dismiss him as a manager. He is a good manager, and he has, to be fair, I suppose he may have overachieved probably with Wolves and the budget and everything that's in place at Wolves, but he's just underwhelming. I don't see anything from him that gives me that sort of he's the man that's going to take us forward and get Spurs back on the map to where the fans would like to see us and challenge him for X, Y, and Z. No, we just
a rebuild. Right? I'm not talking about him winning us the league. If you're looking for somebody for a rebuild, I think he'd be.
Shank, is he an exciting manager for you? Is he going to excite you?
I think, when I alluded to someone steadying the ship earlier, I think he's one that could do that. And I think what I like about him, he's got a bit of stability about him. And as Will alluded to, he brought Wolves up and he's kept them sort of at a good level. But I kind of find him to be a little bit similar to Mourinho in terms of the style and being a bit pragmatic. And I don't know if them players would buy into that. I don't think they necessarily bought into that under Jose, and that's the issue I have with all the current crop, because I don't see us having a big rebuild. I don't see us shipping out the players and getting the ones we want. So that's the only concern I have in terms of the current crop we have, and does it fit? I'm not sure.
I think we're just reading that comment there. It's not laughing at you, Czech. We're just because
I saw
you guys know Derek Trotter.
Yeah. You need to bring. I'm telling you, I can do that job. They need to bring me in. You want to get rid of this deadwood? I'm the guy to do it. I'll be all over Europe. I can make Harry Winks look like I'm telling you.
Definitely. No, Darius, just a last bit on Nuno. If you want to just wrap Nuno up whilst we move on to the next one. I was just looking at
Transfermarkt website just on the spending of Nuno. George Mendes had a big role in this whole Wolves team kind of becoming what they were, and they spent 100 million in the 18-19 season, and they spent 100 million in the 19-20 season, and then spent 74 million last transfer window as well. So they have spent money. They have spent money, and maybe they're not the players necessarily that we think are elite players, and maybe not constituting the price that they've spent. But they spent almost 300 million on players. So he has been back to that Wolves team. I don't think he's going to get the best out of those players, or I don't think he's going to get more out of those players than Jose really could. And that's my issue. I think that maybe Doherty might be happy to see his old manager back and he might play a little bit better. But I just don't think that the players that are in that team and the youth that are in that team would really suit a system like Nuno. And I also think that you need specifics for his system. I agree with Will. He did used to go at those teams that were worse than him, but the way he was able to beat the teams that were better than him was very heavily down, in my opinion, to Adama Traore's ability to just kind of beat a few players and get them in that counter-attacking position so quickly. So I think that he was a very important.
They can do that, but that Deadwood has to go. That's my biggest thing.
Exactly.
For us, I don't want to bring in a manager who can get a tune out of the crap players that we have on the squad now. I want to get rid of them.
100%.
And Will, you are the man to sell them players on, because we can't get rid of them. So you have to get in there and sell them on somehow. Let's go on. Let's move on. Right. Okay.
Oh God.
Oh God. No. I've seen the next one. Oh my God.
Get the cigarettes out, boys.
Again, I'm gonna start with this one. No. There's no Maurizio Sarri, no tab smokers coming. No, I'm sorry for those who smoke. I've got no problem with you smoking, but I don't want to see someone on our bench smoking tabs and just directing football like that. No, for me, it's a no. But Chank, what do you think?
Mate, the cigarettes would be smoking and go up 10 times by the time he sees Musa Sissoko play 10 minutes of football. The guy will probably end up dropping dead or something, the amount of cigarettes he'll be taking in. But yeah, again, didn't really work at Chelsea. He's had some good spells at Napoli, etc. But not entirely convincing. I don't think he would come as well, I don't think he would see us as an attractive proposition. So
no.
I think he's rumoured with Roma, that Roma job.
Yeah, Roma apparently have agreed a deal for him. But, I mean, the photos of him smoking, I'm just like, what? Like, it's just a bit mad. And he had those little tobacco things at Chelsea, didn't he? Because where you couldn't smoke. And I was like, yeah.
If he was at Spurs, he'd be smoking weed by the end of the season. There's no doubt about it.
I didn't want to say
somebody needs to tell him if 2020 need to give him a vape or something.
He would be hitting.
That's what I'm saying.
He would need to. He would need something to chill him out on that bench because he'd get stressed. I can see it now. Big reason.
Is there anybody championing Maurizio Sarri? Is anybody wants to champion him?
No, Tommy's not on the stream, so no.
Okay, because
players
if nobody
getting high walking off the pitch onto the pitch, it'd just be a recipe of disaster, mate.
Talk about a tracksuit manager.
God. The only thing I was going to say to him is, I'm just going to add fuel to the fire of not wanting him. Is the system that he plays is so rigid. It's obviously different to Jose, but it's still so rigid, and you need so much time and training to kind of coach that Sarri ball system into those players.
You need the right
I could not imagine any of those players wanting to
those
cooperate.
Those players, if they can't deal with Jose, how the hell are they going to deal with?
No chance.
There's no chance. No chance. That Sarri ball thing is not going to work.
One thing that we're not giving him a fair shout is that Levy might hire him just so that there's an avenue to get the cigarette sponsor back at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
The Marlborough Stadium.
The Marlborough Stadium. That's a good one. I think I'm going to move on from Sarri because I don't want to see him. And if there was ever an announcement, I'd seriously have to consider what I'm going to do I would have to probably stop wearing my shirts. I'll do what Marlon and Deji have done. Some guys from Marlon, I'd stop wearing the shirts because I couldn't have it. No, sorry, not having it.
I'm tired of taking Chelsea sloppy seconds as well. So
exactly.
Honestly.
Let's move on. Right, we're nearly there.
No.
Right, interesting.
It's getting worse.
Hold on.
Jeez, this is the worst one out of the lot.
Hold on a minute. Let's give Gareth his dues. He's England manager and ex-Middlesbrough manager, and that's about it. So, anybody want to talk about Gareth Southgate first?
No.
Listen. I don't like Southgate. I think he's an awful tactician, right? But listen, I have a theory that if it's coincidence that he's sacked from the England job and he's free and we haven't got a manager in time, Daniel Levy will 110% call him up. Why? And I'll tell you when. I'll justify my reasons, right?
It better be good. It's better be good.
He wants to keep he wants to keep Kane happy, right? Can we all agree? He wants to keep his most valuable asset happy. Gareth Southgate is one of those, right? They get on well. They have a good connection. That's number one. Number two, he fits in with the quota of bringing up English talent. Daniel Levy loves bringing up players from the academy and maximising the profits on these players, right?
Yeah.
And number three, it's probably a bit of a cheaper option. I don't know what his wages are at England right now, whatever. I don't know how it works, but you can kind of see that there's not going to be much competition for him. He's not going to be challenged by maybe, another club going after him. So it's sort of an easy transition from the national team job. And I just got a funny feeling.
Cenk, I'm so angry you've made 3 amazing points.
No,
I'm so angry.
Wait, are we seriously talking about going from Ron Weasley here? Now we've got Dobby for the squad. You know, give him a sock before you sack him, right? I mean,
who invited Cenk on?
How the hell?
Cenk made 3 great points there, and I'm angry about it.
3 great points. I'll give you that, mate.
How the hell have you two, Will and Cenk, have sold 2 managers to me that I've thought no chance, not in hell, and they've sold them to me. But I can't have Gareth Southgate. I can't have him. I
know one more thing as well. And if you look at the core that Pochettino built, a lot of it was English talent. You had the Dyers, you had the Winks coming up, you had the Kanes. Where's most money come from in football right now? Is English players that have inflated prices. That's where Daniel Levy's going to make the most money. So if you think about it, he wants to get those players back up to their market value and try and sell on. And a manager can probably get the best out of them and knows them well as well. Is unfortunately Gareth Southgate.
Mike,
Cenk, I'll give you a round of applause first of all for that. That was 4 great points there.
I want to get another opinion on this now from a more negative perspective, and I think Mike's going to come with that.
I've got nothing to say about Gareth Southgate. Cenk's, I take my hat off to you, mate. You've sold a dead horse there. But this is Gareth Southgate. I just don't have anything further to say about him. It's just a no. It's a no from me.
It's a no from me as well.
I totally get the points that have been raised, and they are very good points, and I do agree with them. I just don't want to see Gareth Southgate in Tottenham Hotspur.
I don't either. Can we clarify that? I do not want to see Southgate.
He looks like Dobby. That's what he looks like.
However, I can see that being a genuine option. I just don't know what it is. I just got a funny feeling.
Will, is this really something we're talking? Are we really talking seriously about Gareth Southgate potentially coming to Spurs? Potentially,
we can just get Graham Potter. He can come in. He can be Ron Weasley. Gareth Southgate can come in and be Dobby. And all we need now is Daniel Levy can be Voldemort, and we can just do like a Harry Potter.
We just cannot do it. So you cannot do it. We cannot. No. This is how far we've fallen as Spurs, that we have talked about some of these managers that we've talked about. I guess before Jose, we would not have even entertained them. We wouldn't have entertained them. I don't think we would have. And now we're kind of, that's a good. Maybe if he did this. No, I'm not having Gareth Southgate. Sorry, no chance. Cody, anything more on Mr. Southgate?
Look, I think Cenk made some very valid points, and just because of that reason, right? That it's the manager that we would least want as supporters. It's probably the manager that we need to brace ourselves for, because let's face it, we know who's running our club, and all of those reasons were quite valid. But no, I mean, I got my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old down here with me now, and we're watching Sesame Street, and I can tell you, I'd rather have the Cookie Monster than Gareth Southgate.
Oh God!
The problem is,
no, sorry, but go on.
The problem is, if he wins the Euros. It's going to make his case even stronger, isn't it?
But he's got some of the best talented players in the world. England have got a good squad.
He's a yes man as well. He's a yes man.
But we won't wait until after Euros to have a manager in place.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We need to have someone before that. Darius, is the last point on Gareth Southgate?
You look nice in a waistcoat, won't he? You will look nice in a waistcoat on the sideline. That's all I'm going to say on Gareth Southgate. I want to move on to the actual
think so.
Candidate that I think should get it.
What Cenk did there was like magic. It was like
I am very, very awestruck by what you did there.
He did this and then went, wow, there you go. And I don't know how he did it. I still don't know how he did it. But
you're getting very sleepy.
Superb.
I do
Right
apologize
then.
for making that, by the way.
No, that's not a problem. The last manager on the list, the last one, Ten Hag. To be fair, I don't know. I've seen his style of play. I've seen a few, but I don't know much about him personally. Darius, I think you know a little bit more about him and his Ajax team. Do you want to just start us off with Ten Hag and sell him to the club, sell him to the support, sell him to the viewers?
I mean, I'm not gonna say I was like Ten Hag at the start. I was very much Nagelsmann was my first option on who I think would fit Tottenham perfectly. I think that Ten Hag also would fit Tottenham pretty perfectly. I think I've got a few notes on him here. I think the main thing about Ten Hag for me is 1, the style of football, and 2, the fact that his track record of improving players is so fantastic that if he was to bring in youth from that academy and the young players that we've already got playing for our team now, it's a really good squad of players and that can fit the system that he plays, because he was a second coach for Bayern. He was Bayern's second team. He was a coach for when Pep was there, and he really is the football that they played, especially when you watch them in the 2018-19 Champions League. Sorry, is it 1920 Champions League? They were fantastic. They the one-touch football, the free-flowing football, and it wasn't obviously they had De Jong, they had De Ligt, they had a few very, very big generational talents in their team, but the players around them, Dusan Tadic came from Southampton. He made Dusan Tadic look like an elite, and when I say elite forward player, Dusan Tadic was on fire for those 2 seasons. So I think that, and I've got here the players that I think that he can improve: Bergwijn, Ali, Sessegnon, Scarlett, even Bale. I think if Bale was to stay, and Reguilon, those players under Ten Hag, I think you could really see something special. And I just hope that we can actually make the right decision and see that this guy is a manager of Ajax. He's managed a team that there's a lot needed for Ajax. I mean, they weren't doing great. Obviously, they win the league a lot, but when he came in 2017 or 18, he really galvanized that team. They were trying to progress their club even further in terms of modernity, and he really did that. So I think that Ten Hag is probably the next best option apart from Nagelsmann, and I really think that his track record and everything about him it really just points forward. And the youth and the improving players, Daniel Levy, that's what he loves. He doesn't want to spend money on players. If you can get somebody who can bring in Scarlett, Lavernia, Sirkin maybe, and maybe make them look like they are better players, that's exactly what he wants. So that's for me. That's the main thing for me. Ten Hag, the football, and the fact that he can improve players so well.
Ten Hag for Darius. Mike?
I agree.
My only negative is I do find that it's a little bit naive in the style of play that he adopts, but it very much the style of play that he does bring it from an attacking perspective fits very much in line of Tottenham's sort of the style of play Tottenham are used to seeing over the years. So I would say he would probably be the next favourite for me, or my next favourite to take over Tottenham. I do like this. I do like everything about him. Like Darius says, he's got that track record of improving players, which is quite a big thing for Tottenham. And if he got his hands on some players that are still relatively young, he could probably do wonders with them. My only fear is, again, just from a defensive perspective, he's naive from a defensive perspective, which in the Premier League,
well, isn't it? That's really going to go down well with us.
Well, but at the end of the day, the reason that our players were defensively seen, and obviously defensively our players aren't great, but also I kept mentioning this all season. If you have a team that are conceding almost 20 shots a game or 15 to 20 shots a game, that's going to make those defenders look worse than it is. If you're pressing from the front and you're stopping even those teams get into your defense, it's gonna look a lot better. If you're dominating possession, then you're not gonna be able to take shots. You're not gonna be able to have shots against you. That's the point I'm trying to make. Jose allowed shots. That's why those defenders were constantly under pressure, constantly looking like they weren't maybe playing as well as they were, because they had to defend for 80 minutes of the game.
It's just that pressing, though, isn't it? Those players we've got, I just don't know if they've got it in them to go back to that pressing type of style of play from a tactical perspective.
That's why the rebuild comes in hand, isn't it?
I think we have enough.
And that's what happened with Poch. It just died off, didn't it? The from a physical perspective, I think we were just drained from that pressing play, and I think that's what killed us, or killed Poch in the end. Pochettino in the end. But
Ten Hag for Tottenham. Ten Hag for Tottenham.
Yeah, I think of this list, he's probably the man that I back the most. But again, it's on the condition that we give him the keys to the convertible. If he's going to come in here, that to me, okay, not only are we going to have to get rid of the players that we all know are part of the problem, but we're going to have to bring in players that fit his philosophy and mentality and meet that level of physicality. It's hard to say when you're bringing a manager in from a different league. It's the same as when you bring in players from different leagues. Look at Bergwijn, who hasn't been able to adapt to the Premier League. Will Ten Hag be able to adapt to the Premier League? Will it happen quickly? Right? If we bring in a guy like Ten Hag, we have to commit to him for the long term. And
100%.
I definitely agree with taking him on in a long-term way. But if it hasn't worked after 2 seasons, are we going to be back to square one? And is the guy up top going to make the same decision? Is it just going to be like wash, rinse, repeat again? Because I would just say, like, if we brought in Ten Hag, we would have to do the same thing that we would do with any other rebuilding manager. And right now, with him being the most high profile of the options, I think that a lot of people would be expecting immediate results, and we can't do that.
I think if you bring in Ten Hag, you have to bring that whole Dutch philosophy with him, because you look at the Dutch academy, the whole philosophy on Dutch football is just far superior than anything we've seen here in England. Yeah. And if you take on Ten Hag, again, I'd want to take the whole of his sort of backroom staff, from director of football, bring them all with him. And
but that's the issue with Tottenham. There's no continuity whatsoever. We've gone from
backroom staff needs to go here as well. That's the thing.
I want Will to come in, because I want Will to say his part on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, the backroom staff needs to go as well, and I think Ten Hag. This is the problem: is Daniel Levy going to be willing to stop micromanaging the club and allow the manager to actually do his job and set up the football team to be the best that it can be? Ten Hag, he's got the skills. I think we have enough young talent in the squad. We have Rodin, we have Tanganga we can move Sanchez. Sanchez is still young too, believe it or not. He's only 24. And he did come out of that system. So is Sanchez is Ten Hag somebody who maybe finally get a tune and get 40 million pounds worth out of Sanchez? We have enough young players defensively in the back, that we all we really need is a right back. Is Harry Winks somebody that he can get a tune out of? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Anybody that gets a tune out of him now, they are some serious magicians.
Magician.
I'm talking serious magician,
And Ten Hag, me and Cody could interview him on our bald and bearded show. He looks like me. If you haven't noticed, the 2 managers that I've been backing have both been bald and bearded. I'm
in that crew too. I'm part of that crew as well. I like that.
That's part of my bias. So I'm 100% behind Ten Hag if he wants to come in. So
Jake.
Yeah, do you know what? Ten Hag is one I would like, but I've still got some preservations over him. I've still got some questions, because with or without Ten Hag, Ajax have one of, if not the best footballing structures and academies in the world.
100%.
Their academies pop out players left, right and centre. Every year there's one player coming up, 16, 17, 18 years of age, and you're like, wow. And it's whether he can translate that over to Tottenham when he's got his hands tied behind his back. He's not going to have a say. He's not going to get what he wants. And the problem is that the players we currently have, are they going to be able to play that high press, that energetic football? Because if you look at Ajax's core, they're all young, all very young. You look at Potts when he pressed, all very young. And when the older player you have, it's harder to coach them. I don't know if any of you have had any coaching experiences, but the older the player, the harder it is to ingrain something into them, because it's
old habits die hard.
Yeah,
don't change the spots, do they?
They have,
and that's what I'm saying about any new manager, particularly as Cody's alluded to, and both Will as everybody's kind of alluded to. It's a rebuild. If we get a rebuild manager, we have to give that manager the tools and the time. It's not just giving him; it's the time as well. And I keep going back to the point: we don't give managers time. Historically, we haven't done in the last 20 years giving any manager time. What's going to be
Chelsea
different
without the trophies, aren't we?
But what's going to be any different if we bring someone like Ten Hag in, even if he's got this great philosophy, has worked in a great system? Who's to say that in 18 months' time, and we got some really bad results and players are not performing, who's to say is this the right decision? We're so fickle as fans, and I think the board's probably even more fickle than we are. Is that they'll see this and think, you know what, we can't do this anymore, and he's gone. I just don't know. I just don't know.
You know what the definition of insanity is, don't you?
Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And I think that's something that's something that all 6 of us have acknowledged, is that really it doesn't. The manager is not the biggest problem at this club. And it's funny because I was telling Will earlier, I got my hands on a copy of a book about Tottenham Hotspur called The Biography of Tottenham Hotspur. And I'm about 50 pages in. And there's a paragraph in here that's talking about Spurs back in the early 1900s, right after they won the FA Cup. And I just want to read an excerpt from that. It says, "At the same time, there were changes going on behind the scenes at White Hart Lane. Back in those days, a manager generally doubled as club secretary. Cameron had been no exception, and in an attempt to relieve him of the paperwork that had begun to get him down, the board took on Arthur Turner, an accountant, to do the admin and look after the paperclips. But that wasn't all. Less helpful to Cameron's cause was that Turner had also been hired to put in train the board's plans for ground development, which meant there wasn't a lot of cash to spare for rebuilding the team." This has literally been going on for 120 years at this club.
1900.
That's what I'm saying about
insane.
the culture of this club. Like, it needs to change, seriously. It's actually a bit, we're sitting here laughing, but...
And Cenk, the only way to change that is a trophy, and I've realised that now, isn't it? Like,
and I think we're starved of that. And guys, I know we could do this for a long time, and we're gonna have probably other opportunities because, as I said, this merry-go-round in terms of managers, in terms of names of managers, is probably gonna happen for a good 3 more weeks yet, unless there's been a few things on the chat saying about the Lille manager has been approached. I'm not sure how true that is, but we'll I guess we'll see in the next couple of days. Just one more comment here. We need to play a style, and the youth need to play that style. So when they come in, they know the way we play. That's what Ajax and Barcelona do best. Our academy needs to do the same, and that's a good point to end on. From Colin there. There's no continuity, gentlemen. Fantastic show, really good. Really glad to see across the pond that we've got some, just that collective spirit of Spurs. I think we all have seen and had enough now that we just need some continuity and success. Continuity just to keep this manager, not bottle it and just let that person, if it's the right person, deal with the club in the right way and back him. That's what I think we've got to do. We've got to back this manager. So, guys, just at home watching, like, subscribe, share, comment. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week with talking points, with another talking point. We don't know what that will be yet, because in the life of Spurs, it could be anything at this present time. But we will be on again next week, and look out for our preview and reaction shows. Like to thank our guests, Cody, Matt, Will Stewart, and Cenk, and also the residents in the house, Mike and Darius3k. Thank you, gentlemen. We are out. See you guys very soon.